Alright, hi, and today we'll be talking about integration by parts, which is just an integral of something that's really funky. I like to call it integral of something where you have two parts times each other. Okay, now this is going to be a little bit interesting, but I'm just going to say this right now. You're going to want to pick some parts, the f of x, to be a little bit easier so that the derivative of f of x is going to be simpler than f of x. So that's going to be something really essential right now. But the integral of f of x times g prime of x dx is going to be f of x times g of x minus the integral of the derivative of f of x times gx dx. Okay? All right, and so let's go forward with it. Let's try out some actual problems. All right, so now we got x times e of x dx, and we're going to integrate that. So first off, I would probably say make f of x be equal to x because the derivative of x is going to be 1, so that's simpler. That follows that simple guideline. Okay, and then our g prime of x is going to be e of x, and that's really simple too because the derivative or the antiderivative of g of x or e to the x is also e to the x. Okay, so that's a really nice easy part to work with. This is kind of an easy problem to work with in the beginning. Okay, so now literally you can just plug in these four into the formula and simplify it as need. Okay, so that looks like that. Okay, so basically f of x is x, e of x is also e to the x, not e of x, I meant e to the x is g of x. Okay, and we just work our way down, and the integral of e to the x is just going to be the x. But remember, when we do the integration of it, so this will be x times e to the x minus e to the x. We do have to add our arbitrary constant at the end. You know, just add your c. Okay? All right, let's try a couple more. Okay, so let's say we want to integrate x times sine of x dx. Okay? So first off, you're probably going to want to pick what f of x is going to be, and I bet everyone can probably pick out that it's probably going to be x. Okay, which means f prime of x is going to equal 1. Okay, and then set up your g prime of x. G prime of x is going to be sine of x. All right, and so the antiderivative of that is going to be, let me double check. Oh, I accidentally wrote it down before. I think that's negative cosine of x. Yep, negative cosine of x. And that's exactly what I wanted. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to plug it all in. All right. So now what we can do is we can actually do some really cool stuff. You can actually, since there's a double negative here, we can get rid of it and just make it a positive. Okay. So that seems to work out pretty nice right there. And so when I do the integral of cosine of x, we're obviously going to get back to sine of x. So this should be negative x cosine of x plus sine of x plus c. Okay? All right. And there's your integration by parts. Let's try a couple more. All right, now this one's a little bit different in that we don't have an x, but you want to pick something that's going to make it a little bit easier to work with. So what my recommendation is make your f of x be the natural log of x, because the derivative of f of x is going to be 1 over x. So that's really nice to work with right there. Okay, now g prime of x might be a little bit more difficult, but if you just take your time, you should be able to arrive to it real fast and get this, which is pretty nice. It's negative 1 over 4x to the 4th. Okay, so once again, we just plug in everything, all right, which we get this. Okay, all right, so all we have to do is simplify. I would highly recommend bring out the negative 1/4 out here just to make your job a lot easier. All right, so now what we're going to do is when we brought it out, it became positive, so that was always nice to deal with an addition rather than a subtraction. Okay, and we do the integral of this again, and yes, you should get the same thing as exactly what you did over there. So that's kind of nice to know. Now, the 1/4 times this is, since this is basically going to be the same thing as right here, it turns into -1/16 to the fourth. We just add the c at the end to take care of our constant, our arbitrary constant, and you're all set. All right, so that's it by integration by parts. It's a hugely important formula. Make sure you memorize it, and make sure you always try to make f prime of x to be simpler than f of x. All right, thank you for your time. Have a great day. Bye.